Hey, thanks for checking out Coffee with Brett. I hope you're enjoying these short videos while I get to enjoy my coffee. The point of this show is to talk about project management basics in really quick spurts. And trust me, there's tons of coffee talk for us to have. But if you ever have a project management or even a TeamGantt related question, please get in touch via the YouTube comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on topics or even approaches to project management. And I like that stuff more than I like talking about it. So I'll always take your suggestions. And I want you to keep up with the show too. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and click on that bell icon so that you can get notified when we release new episodes. All right, so today's show is all about a topic that has several different names or terms. I'm pretty sure PMI calls it resource management. You may have heard of it referred to as resourcing, workload planning, staffing, tasking, capacity planning, SME assignments, workload management. I even heard people calling it peopling and casting in digital agencies this week. So what is it then? Well, PMI defines resource management as hiring, developing, and retaining the people needed to turn corporate strategy into reality. And it's an important thing, right? This topic can also cover the management of supplies through the supply chain and the option of outsourcing your talent needs as well. But that's not really where I'm taking the topic today. I'm going to be talking about people and workloads. And to put it simply, it's all about staffing your projects with the appropriate people to meet your project's goals. It also relates to strategic planning related to balancing team members' workloads across projects, which can be really important and really challenging. The challenge of actually managing teams across several projects is making sure that each individual stays busy and working on tasks while not being completely overbooked. It's a difficult balance to find, particularly when you're managing multiple projects with a limited number of staff, or if your projects require a variety of skills at different times, and when your timelines or your needs seem to change all too often. So if you're a project manager, you likely deal with this very often. I know that I have. So I want to mention one more time here that yes, the topic of resource management can include physical resources as well. But for the sake of this short video, we're only talking about people and scheduling. And on that note, let's move away from calling people resources, please. We're really just staffing projects and assigning tasks. We're not using people to get things done. We're asking people to solve challenges that are presented to us in our projects. And if you want to have good relationships with the people on your team, you definitely shouldn't refer to them as something that you'd use or eventually dispose of. It's just kind of gross. And really, I think planning workloads for a team is really a kind act. Think about it. You're taking the time to estimate tasks, plan those tasks, and check to make sure that your team actually have enough time to not only get that work done, but also not be overwhelmed by other work at the same time. Because at the end of the day, you want your team to produce quality work that everyone is proud of, and you actually want your team to have a life and not feel burnout. All right, so maybe it's not as kind as it is necessary. On some level, you need to protect your team from being overworked because that will impact your projects. So how can you do it? Well, at the core, the things that you need to know in order to create a solid work plan are pretty straightforward. And there are actually quite a few ways that you can do this. In fact, in chapter 6 of my book, Project Management for Humans, I offer an example spreadsheet that you can use. So check that out. But if you're using TeamGantt, you're actually far ahead of any silly spreadsheet. In fact, when you add task estimates and assign people to those tasks in TeamGantt, you're actively building a work plan that's solely based on your planned tasks. And that means that anytime a task changes in duration, your workload plan automatically gets updated in real time. And then you can quickly spot conflicts because when someone's overbooked, you'll see a little red box. Then you can click on that box and see that the person is assigned to other things. That means that you can get to the root of the issue quickly, have a quick conversation with that person or another project manager, update the plan, and just move on. It's so easy. See, spreadsheets are basically ancient at this point. But seriously, having this view without the need to make additional updates makes workload planning so much easier and so much more realistic. You can actually focus on the people, and they really should be the focus after all. So I've often compared the act of workload planning to the game Tetris. It's easy to get wrapped up in the concept of these little shapes coming together in a logical way to clear a goal. The pieces complement one another, yet they all naturally work in different ways. The biggest difference between resourcing and Tetris? Well, the team members we're trying to assign tasks to obviously are not blocks. They're human beings and they need to be treated as such. That's why I think it's important to connect with and really understand your team so that you can staff them with the right work. While it might seem like it's all about numbers in the form of task estimates and dates, it really isn't. There are so many moving parts to projects and teams, and you'll need to consider most of them to be sure that your staffing plan is optimized by assigning people to the work that really suits them, and at the same time is as close to accurate as possible, even as you adapt to change on your projects. You'll have to do a little bit of legwork and some socializing to kind of get the information you need to make the right decisions on behalf of your team and even your organization. Or better yet, you could set up a process and expectations about providing or receiving critical staffing information. And you'll rest assured that way that staffing plans are really well considered. So let's jump into what you need to know. First, it's interests. If you have a team member who loves chocolate, why not put that person on the chocolate site redesign? Maybe you have multiple people who want to be on that project, but they're all busy on other projects. These are the breaks, folks. You have to do what's right for the company and for your budget on your project. If you can put interests first, it's awesome. It won't always work out that way for everyone, but it's a good first step to really try. After all, I tend to think that you get better work out of people who feel connected to a project. All right, next is skill sets. It's as simple as getting to know each and every team member's work. Some people are meant to create specific types of designs or write specific type of code in a specific language. It not only has to do with interests, but it also has to do with expertise and strengths within those tasks, or even weaknesses. So sure, I may love chocolate, but that doesn't mean that I'm meant to design the site that caters to the audience the client is trying to reach. You've got to apply the right skills to the challenge to get the best result possible. So those are the basics. I think after that, there's some pretty specific details related to availability you need to consider. Again, you're dealing with people here, so you'll always be dealing with moving targets. So the first thing is, don't forget holidays. Make sure you're planning around them. And remember, people always extend holidays. Plan for that. But at a minimum, you'll want to be sure that your account admin has added them into your TeamGantt account so that you can't schedule people on those special days. True story, I once scheduled work on New Year's Day. Oops, what are you going to do? All right, so on that note, you want to account for vacations. It's great to know about these in advance. Be sure that you know your company's policy around vacations. You never ever want to be the PM who says, well, you have a deadline on that date and that's going to be a conflict with, your very expensive, exciting trip. So no. Ask people to request trips at least a month in advance so that you can plan ahead and make things work. And account for that time off in TeamGantt. Creating a plan for vacations or time off is a great way to handle this because you're basically scheduling vacation as a task for a full day. That'll show up in your workload plan. Okay, lastly, but of equal importance, is that you must account for moving schedules. Projects always change. One week you're working against a firm deadline, and the next week that deadline might be changed because of a client, or there are different needs on a project, or some other reason someone just conjured up. It's tough to know when that change will happen, but when it does, how you'll fill someone's time with other work should be high on your mind. So basically, it comes down to having a solid plan that's backed up with task estimates. Then you can turn to the amazing people you work with to see their capabilities and their availability, and really start working on a plan and start assigning that work and crushing those projects. But honestly, it doesn't stop there. Workload management is an ongoing process and discussion that you need to stay on top of, whether you're using a spreadsheet or you're using TeamGantt. If you're busy and you're not slowing down anytime soon, you want to keep those plans updated. You also want to be aware of potential work that could be coming your way. If you're working at a consulting agency, knowing what's in your sales pipeline can help you to plan capacity or even determine when new projects can even start. And if you stay aligned with the person in charge of sales or assigning new projects, you should be able to anticipate upcoming needs and timelines. In some cases, you may even want to put some basic plans in TeamGantt so that you can anticipate needs and see where your workload plans might stand should you have to take on more work. I also want to add here that the value of tracking this data goes beyond your projects. And you're probably deducing that, right? Strong workload planning can help business owners make really important decisions on growing a company. Think about it. If a new project is coming and my team's workloads are already showing that they're fully allocated to current project work, then I'll need to think about outsourcing or even hiring new staff members. There are so many benefits here with workload planning, but remember, every plan requires communication, and this is no exception. No matter what you do, be sure to communicate about staffing as much as possible so you can keep up with change and make decisions quickly and keep your team on board. If you're in an organization that's constantly handling change, you'll know that it's a tough target to hit. In fact, your numbers will often be slightly off, but you'll find comfort in knowing that you're doing everything you can to stay ahead of the resourcing crunch. And at the same time, your team's going to appreciate that. They're going to see everything that you're doing to protect their work-life balance. And that's all we want, right? A little bit of balance. The ability to work an 8-hour day and produce something great? No problem. You've got this. All right, that's all I have for this episode. Stop by the comments and tell me, what do you call it? Resourcing? Staffing? Casting? Peopling? And how are you managing to not overbook your teams? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks, and have a good one.